Welcome back, Math Grizz! Today, we will round numbers to the nearest hundred. Let's round the number 557 to the nearest hundred. Here we have hundreds. We need to think, what hundreds does 557 fall between? We know that it falls between 500 and 600. Let's make a number line. We'll have 500 on one side and 600 on the other, since we're rounding to the nearest or the closest hundred. We know that halfway between 500 and 600 is 550. Now let's think, 557. Is that going to be less than 550 or greater? It's actually going to be just a little bit greater because we have a 7 in the ones place and a 0 here. So let's think, is 557 closer to 500 or is it closer to 600? It's closer to 600. So when we round 557 to the closest or the nearest hundred by it, it rounds to 600. 149, rounded to the nearest hundred. First off, we need to think, what two hundreds does 149 fall between? We know it falls somewhere in between 100 and 200, somewhere in here. So when we make our number line, we will need to write 100 on one side and 200 on the other. Halfway is 150. So let's think, 149. Is that before 150 or after? It's actually right before 150. It's one number away. So let's think, is 149 closer to 100 or 200? It's closer to 100. So we know that when we round 149 to the nearest or closest hundred, it's 100. 354. 354 falls between 300 and 400, somewhere in between here. So let's make our number line. 300 on one side, 400 on the other. Halfway is 350. So let's think. 354 is going to be a little after 350 because of the 4 in the ones place. So is 354 closer to 300 or 400? It's closer to 400. So we know 354 rounded to the nearest hundred is 400. 400 is the closest hundred by it. 470. 470 falls between 400 and 500. Let's make our number line. 400, 500. Halfway is 450. Now 470 falls after 450. If we count by tens, we know we had 50, and then 460, and then 470. So let's think, is 470 going to be closer to 400 or 500? It's way closer to 500. So when we round 470 to the nearest or the closest hundred, we get 500. 835. 835 falls between 800 and 900. Let's make a number line. 800, 900. Halfway is 850. 835 is going to be less than 850 because we have 35 here and 50, so it's less. So is 835 closer to 800 or is it closer to 900? It's closer to 800. So when we round 835 to the hundreds place, we get 800. 439. 439 falls between 400 and 500. We need to see if it's closer to 400 or 500. So let's make our number line. 400, 500. Halfway is 450. So let's think. 439. Is that going to be less than 450 or greater than? It's going to be less than 450. Is 439 closer to 400 or 500? It's closer to 400. So 439 rounded to the closest hundred is 400. 888 falls between 800 and 900. Let's make a number line. 800, 900. Halfway is 850. 888 is going to be greater than 850 because 88 is greater than 50. So let's think, is 888 closer to 800 or is it closer to 900? It's way closer to 900. So we know that 888 rounds to 900. 207 rounded to the nearest hundred. We know that falls somewhere between 200 and 300. When we make our number line, we have 200 and 300 on each side, and halfway would be 250. Let's think, is 207 less than 250 or greater? It's way less than 250. So let's think, is it going to be closer to 200 or 300? It is way closer to 200. So 207 rounded to the nearest or closest hundred is 200.